Good evening, good evening. This is Reverend Mike. I'm here live with my dear good brother from another mother, Brother Chris Otten, former Ward 1 City Council candidate. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing well. How you doing, good Reverend?
Doing pretty good, doing pretty good. It's a beautiful day outside. You couldn't ask for a better day, actually. I thought it was going to rain and the rain didn't come, so it's pretty cool. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody?
Well, my name is Chris Otten, at Rotten Forever. Just tuning in to DC's amazing series of news and events and things happening. There's so much to talk about. I'm glad to be here talking about it with you. I've been in DC for 25 years. Basically, yeah, former ANC commissioner, ran for mayor in '06, ran for Ward 1 in 2022. Didn't win except for my ANC position. But I've been steeped in a lot of this political wrangling and victories here and there here in DC for a long time. And I'm just like kind of tuned in and want to debate this stuff uh, with real people affecting real people's outcomes here in the District of Columbia.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I'm with you in the fact that I also ran for office and did not win in 2022 for mayor in this great city that I love so much that I don't think anyone else loved more than I do. But yeah, brother, like it's just issues that I feel needs to be talked about, needs to be debated. Things need to be brought to people's attention. And I'm all here for it, you know. So as we get into it, as we dive into it, I'm going to let us hear some brief updates from our mayor. We're going to start talking about the budget uh, issues, and but first, let us just view this video.
Cut is to a program that helps our neighbors in need by providing money for rent if they're facing eviction. It's called the Emergency Rental Assistance Program.
And now we're learning the mayor wants to cut funding for that program in half. Our Rafael Sanchez Cruz is digging into this for us. And Rafa, so the mayor said today she doesn't believe everybody is using the program in the right way.
Yeah, that's right. The debate over how much money the program needs is not new, but what is new is Mayor Bowser calling into question whether some D.C. tenants are using emergency funds because they simply don't want to pay their rent. Mayor Murrow Bowser's proposed 2025 budget cuts D.C.'s emergency rental assistance program in half, from $41 million to $20 million.
Is that because you believe that half of ERAP applicants are using the program fraudulently?
I believe that there are people who are using ERAP that can pay their rent.
It was this comment that prompted a sparring match between the mayor and the chairperson for the Committee on Housing, Robert White.
Don't pay your rent. The government will do it for you, and it will never be enough.
That is an absolute illogical jump from the reality that I'm talking
No, this argument is illogical.
The program known as ERAP provides low-income tenants who are facing eviction with money for overdue rent. For a family of four in D.C., they would have to make less than $61,000 a year, according to D.C.'s ERAP website. Tenants can apply once a year and are eligible for up to 5 months of rent payments. For example, according to the program, for a two-bedroom in Columbia Heights, a tenant would get a maximum of $2,760 a month.
You will face eviction if you don't pay your rent. And if you think the government is going to pay it, you stop paying.
I think you need to have more conversations with people struggling in this city, Mayor.
When ERAP applications opened in January, 3,500 people applied in 4 hours. The high demand led to the website crashing for applicants like Assam.
You keep saying the maintenance issue, and everybody was freaked out.
Bowser's current budget proposal gives ERAP $12.6 million more than before the pandemic. Last budget cycle, the mayor proposed $8 million. The council brought it up to $21 million. D.C. officials say the ERAP program would need up to $100 million of the budget to meet the city's current yearly demand. As the debate over the dollars continues.
So yeah, it's a lot of things going on right there. We have our good friend, Councilmember Robert White, who is actually the head of the Housing Committee. We have Mayor Bowser, who is saying that she's cutting money to people that need help because they don't need the help. They just choose not to pay the rent and and they want the city to pay it. So man, like, what are your thoughts? Like, we all know that the money that's being cut, most of the money is going to MPD and downtown. So what are your thoughts on all of this?
Great segment, Michael. This is like, there's just a few things that stand out there. Think about those numbers for a second. 2.5 stacks a month from the government to an absentee landlord who may or may not even live in the city. That's what ERAP could help people with. But doesn't that just, I mean, right there, that just shows you how extremely unaffordable the district is right now, where the city, in order to help people, have to put up 2.5 stacks a month. I heard $2,750 a month max. That's like $33,000 a year in rent to a landlord. And that means and they said it, you could qualify if you make less than $60,000 a year. The skewed definition of affordability is so off the charts in this city, and what it means, what real people are making here. The minimum wage in DC is $17 an hour. That's $32,000 a year. So you're not supposed to be paying more than a third of whatever you make. And if it's affordable rent, you're supposed to pay no more than a third of what you make. So an affordable rent for somebody making minimum wage would be about, let's say, if they're making $32,000 a year, they'd be spending about, $10,000, right, a year on rent. And so $10,000 a year on rent, that's like less than $1,000 a month, right? That's like about $850 a month. That's where DC's rents used to be, like 2005, 06, right?
Right.
And then this concept came about called inclusionary zoning. And it was a government policy that sounded great to all of the progressives and the do-gooders out there in DC. It sounded like great because it required affordable housing in every new building built. But that policy has led to what we see now in terms of skewing what affordable actually means and who it's going to benefit. Affordability right now is benefiting people making up to $60,000. Think about that. You can make $60,000 and qualify for ERAP. So the pool of people that qualifies for this small amount of money the city budgets every year, is very big. It's for anybody making $0 to $60,000 a year, right? And so if you're making $60,000 a year, you're competing with somebody who's been in DC for a long time, who maybe is making 35, 40,000. How about the racial income gap in DC, where most Black folks are making less than 50? So the reality is, by it being so skewed and helping somebody making 60,000, you make that competition for that small pot of money so hard and so high that less and less people who really might need it, like the folks who cannot pay rent, though, not the people that maybe Miss Bowser's talking about, the real people who cannot pay rent because they're making minimum wage.
So wait, so are you saying that you believe that the people that Mayor Bowser talking about, you believe they do exist though?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't know. What do you think? Why would anybody? I mean, it just doesn't seem real.
It's not real in my experience. I don't know anyone who just decides they're going to go 8 months without paying rent purposely and then apply for ERAP. I don't see it. I haven't heard of it. And I don't know where she gets that unfortunate information.
I think she is so used to having her developer friends game the system that she's actually projecting how everyday people who are just trying to live and survive and get along and be here in their city, she's projecting how the people she hangs out with would behave. Like her developer buddies, yeah, they might lie, they might get the money if they were applicable. So I think she was projecting there entirely about the group of people she hangs out with and that she cohorts with.
So from a budget standpoint, what's the solution? We keep running out of money. Like no matter how many times we open up ERAP, it seems like it's never enough. It's like a few hours and boom, the money's gone. So do we just keep raising the money for ERAP, or like from a budget standpoint, the city council is trying to decide, do we take money from elsewhere and give more to ERAP, or do we give more money elsewhere so ERAP isn't needed? Like, what do we do? And as harsh, I have to add this, as harsh as Robert White seemed to be with Mayor Bowser, and I don't blame him, but I think he deserves some criticism because we've been waiting on the introduction of the Green New Deal for quite some time.
Yeah. Okay. So you saw how quickly the council and the mayor turned around and found $500 million for a billionaire downtown, right? Ted Leonesis in the arena.
Well, they say that money is separate. You know, it's two different funds.
I mean, yes, it's out of the capital budget. So what is the capital budget? Capital budget is the other budget. You have the operating budget and you have the capital budget. The capital budget is still a budget. It's still a chunk of money. Instead of it coming out of tax flow that comes into the city every year, it comes out of a pot of money that's generated when the city pledges to Wall Street that it will pay back Wall Street for a loan. So the capital budget comes out of municipal bonds that are floated on the market, that all the investors of Wall Street buy. We take that money and we say, hey, we'll pay you back in 10, 30 years, 10, 20, 30 years at this interest rate. And we're good for it because we're a municipality. So we'll pay you back at 4%. So it's a 4% loan. That's what the capital budget is. That's what the capital monies are. And so it's still a chunk of money. And it's like, you know, it's like, what are they spending it on is the question, right?
Right.
How about 300 million plus servicing? And when I say servicing, the loan debt resurfacing, 300 million for a streetcar on 8th Street that does absolutely nothing for people except give them a hard time when it's broken down. Or all the people that got displaced, all those small businesses that got displaced on 8th Street. That's one example. Another example, the convention center. Who does that serve in our city? I don't know how, does that help any homeless folks? Or does that help any people who are really, you know, trying to stay in the city? How about $250 million for the Marriott Hotel on Massachusetts Avenue, right next to the convention center? Capital budget. How about $1 billion for the baseball stadium? How about $85 million for the Mystics practice center in Ward 8? How, you know, this is all out of capital budget. Also, schools, libraries, that all comes out of the capital budget, right?
Right.
Roads, this sort of stuff. And then the operating budget is like for maintenance and all of that. But to build the stuff, it comes out of the capital budget. We borrow money to lay a chunk of that money down to get a contractor, insurance, and to build the darn thing. And then the maintenance comes out of the operating budget, which is every year. The taxes that come in every year. So those are the two different budgets. You have a capital budget, operating budget. When they want to throw at you, oh, that's a different budget and it's apples and oranges. And yes, technically it's true, but it's all municipal money. It's all city money that we.
You don't think that our city, without the Capitals and without the Mystics and without the Wizards, you don't think we would suffer a blow, and you don't think that that would hurt tax money that goes towards programs such as ERAP, such as our schools, things of that nature. You don't think that we need a robust downtown and that we need these sports teams to help our economy?
I mean, I'm not convinced of it. I mean, the economy has already busted because of the pandemic. I didn't see the Caps and Wizards saving us from that. The downtown is in the state it is because there's no office buildings left. It's not because the Caps and the Wizards are here or not.
I mean, I'm very fond of my hero almost, Marion Barry, Mayor for Life. And one of the things that he kind of made his thing was he wanted to build downtown, and he thought that was very critical to our city. And so I don't want to be the devil's advocate. I don't agree with the mayor per se, but I have to say that I think it does matter that we do keep our teams downtown. Now, what I'm more critical at is could we have come up with a better agreement? At one hearing, Councilmember McDuffie asked a question, and he said they went out and made a deal in Virginia that got turned down. And it seems like we should have been at a very better negotiating place at that point. So he doesn't understand why we have the deal that we have, and it's not better. So I kind of agree with that, where I don't think the mayor and her team did a great job of negotiating for our city. But I do think that we do need our teams downtown. And I'll even go as far as to say, and we're going to save this for later because it affects a race in Ward 7. But I'll even go as far as to say a football stadium, definitely will help our economy as well.
It's just not proven in the facts. I mean, I'd like to see more evidence, but imagine this. Let's say the Caps and the Wizards did leave. Imagine that's our stadium, right? The city built it. So imagine how much economic activity would regularly happen if we had all the high school teams down there every weekend playing or during the week, like Dunbar versus Eastern, whatever. Like we just have we have it, like it gets real at the Cap Center, at the arena for our people and for our teams. And we manage it. I think as much economic excitement and activity would happen if we promoted from our own people and our own teams. And frankly, like I don't know, some of the bars get help, some of the restaurants get help down there, during game night, but a lot of those folks don't even live in DC. Like Caps night, it's lily white. It's a lily white arena, in terms of demographics. And most of those folks aren't from DC. And, okay, fine. There's a little bit of flow of money in, but I just wonder, with all the taxes that might have been generated over the last 10 years, are we now just turning it back over to Ted Leonesis, a billionaire, and by the way, there's only 300 Chinese people left in downtown, and there's only 300 or 200 and something Black folks left.
Speaking of Ted, there's something that did kind of, for lack of a better word, piss me off. Not only was it this money agreement, but there were a few other things that they threw on in the hat for Ted Leonesis and Monumental Sports. And one of them in particular was that he wanted to move the bus stops a little further from Capital One Arena, and he also wanted it to be guaranteed drug-free zones. To me, it kind of sounded off as, we don't want those blacks coming around making trouble. And I have to say that. Did you kind of get the same vibe from that?
I mean, I don't know what's in his head, but I know who should know what's in his head, and that's our council, who was all there mostly clapping behind him, and our mayor. Like, I mean, why don't they know what he's thinking when he comes up with this stuff, and they're like basically shaking a deal on principle to these points? Like, what? Why don't they know? This is not a small chunk of change, right? This is $500 million, and we have kids going to bed hungry every night in this city, right? We have some of the highest illiteracy rates in the nation. We have some of the highest rates of deaths of mamas giving birth. Mothers who aren't getting the health care they need after giving birth. I mean, how is this acceptable? Like, that's the thing. For me, it's the contrast. It's the contrast of what's being prioritized and what's being deprioritized. And for me, I find it unacceptable that here we are propping up a billionaire in Chinatown, downtown DC, while a slumlord a block and a half away is pushing out some of the last Chinese folks from a building they've lived in for decades, generations. I don't know for sure, but for a very long time. And there's no money for them, right? There's no money to make sure Chinatown actually retains its Chinese people. And I heard the refrain, "What's Chinatown without Chinese people?" And it's sort of like, I don't see how we turn around as a city and prioritize a billionaire, but then just kind of leave the Chinese folks that have been down there in the dust. And the same could be true for Chocolate City. Like, what is Chocolate City without Black folks, right? I mean, 60,000, the census number, 60,000 Black folks made gone over the last 2 decades since all of this Bill Moore and luxury this and luxury that and $8 coffees and $10 beers. And I mean, it's, again, I get back to that minimum wage, or $17 an hour, 33,000 a year. I mean, it's just, we're not talking about a very sustainable city for people who've been here. And our budget is actually critical. It speaks to all of that. Like, what gets prioritized? And I'm sorry, I don't think sports stadiums and billionaires are gonna save us. I think it's
we gotta move on, but we can kind of stay on the same topic because I want to kind of switch to our elections that are going on. We have an election going on in Ward 4 for council, an election going on in Ward 7 for council. And we also have our at-large race with Robert White and Christina Henderson running as well. And so one of the big issues in Ward 7 in that race is the stadium. And I mean, quite frankly, it affects every ward. It would have to be voted on by every council member and signed by the mayor. So one particular candidate, Ebony Payne, is definitely, and that's Ebony with a Y, is definitely adamantly seems to be opposed to building a stadium. Do you think a stadium would help the people of Ward 7?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I think jobs will help. Will stadium jobs help? Are people, when they build this stuff, do they hire folks from here? Do they hire, you know what I'm saying? Like, is it going to be the types of jobs that actually pay people enough so they don't have to file for ERAP? Right? I mean, that's the thing. So these things are interconnected. It's like, if you're just if it's the easy way out.
You don't think that people have to start somewhere before you have to, like they say, you have to crawl before you have to walk? I know that when the National Stadium came, there were a lot of friends and family that I had that were excited that they finally got a job. And even though it was at the National Stadium, they appreciated it, and you don't think that bringing the glory days, quote unquote, back, and bringing the team back to DC at FedEx, at the site of FedEx Field, uh, you don't think, I mean, at a time where crime is one of the most talked about subjects, you don't think that a stadium would help as far as, bring on a lot of employees? They might not, start off at 80,000, but it does help you somewhere.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with that. I just think, like, what is there? 8 games at home every year. So it's 8 days out of the year. And then you might get the playoffs, but we're talking about the Commanders. So that's
I mean, this is Josh Harris. This is not Dan Snyder. We're talking about Josh Harris, who almost has that Jerry Jones, Jerry World vision, who wants to build this state-of-the-art, modern stadium, and it won't just be for the Commanders. It's going to have all kinds of concerts and all kinds of events going on in there all throughout the year, and it's going to generate so much fun, so much revenue.
for him.
And also there's this sort of like morale factor, right? Like our people are kind of at a part where there's a lot of killings going on, there's a lot of crime going on, no one trusts each other, and we remember back in the days where we were at RFK, and it was like this brotherhood. Everyone, it was feeling this love for the Commanders, and it just kind of brought the city together, especially under head coach Gibbs. You don't think those things in a way are valuable?
I mean, there's a lot of intangibles there, that I think are valuable. However, I mean, okay, look at Nat Stadium. I mean, have you been to Buzzard Point of late?
Of late? No.
Yeah. When was the last time you were around Nat Stadium?
A few, I guess, last fall.
Okay. That's where they built the Frederick Douglass Bridge.
Right.
I mean, in 20 years, it is a completely different place, right? And that's okay, except who is it for? And who did it benefit? So, like, yeah, yes, it might create a handful of jobs for, a handful of people. Let's say 50 to 100 DC residents might get some steady jobs that might pay them $17 an hour, and be part-time. It won't have health care and all of that. And then the area around it will become like what we've seen has happened around Nat Stadium, which is a luxury Disneyland. I mean, it's, I don't know how else to put it. It's like, and the demographics have completely shifted. I mean, I know Greenleaf and the Kings Village there is holding on, and James Creek, and that's like, they're there, folks are there, but it is like, it's like folks' days are ticking, and because these capitalists are, see land as a way to make an easy buck.
I mean, you got to think about it. Between 2010 and 2017, our city was getting like influxes of tens of thousands of people very quickly. It kind of like sped up this whole quote unquote gentrification process. I mean, there was nowhere for these people to live. What are we supposed to do? You have to build, right?
I mean, I don't know. I go around there now. I mean, go to Southwest now and look up at the wharf. I mean, half of these units are empty. Those same people who
they
came
left.
left. They got out of
They
here.
left.
They have the privilege to leave, right? They have
Yeah.
the money and the privilege to leave. And by the way, they weren't staying here anyway. They come here, pad their resume, and then go back to where they came from and get their positions in the planning offices or the government or, the business sector. I mean, it's like a giant internship city. It's like folks come here to intern, to learn how to do business, learn how to do government, learn how to do nonprofit sector stuff, and then they leave. And so it's a very transient city in that way for a part of it. And it happens to be the parts of the city that have been built over the last 20 years. And I'm thinking like Union Market. I'm thinking the Wharf. I'm thinking, like Southwest, Buzzard Point. I'm thinking, even Shaw. Shaw has kind of gone that way. I mean, complete demographic shifts too in the area around where the city has decided to make it temporary internship lodging. Like these aren't real communities. They're just like basically Airbnbs.
So with these elections, you ran for council member. I know I did attempt to run for mayor, but with elections coming up, we have Ward 4, we have Lisa Gore, and we have Councilmember Janice Lewis George. Lisa Gore doesn't seem to be running on housing, even though she seemed to have been running on housing the previous election. Councilwoman Janice Lewis George, of course, as we know, introduced the Green New Deal. And in Ward 7, we have Ebony Payne, who is strongly against the stadium.
You have a big field there in Ward 7.
A very, very, very big field. We have Ebony Rose, whose complete resume is in education. I don't know any candidate who has a strong resume when it comes to housing. I think the outgoing council member probably is the strongest. And then we have, of course, Ward 8, where we have Trayon White and Branch, who's a former principal, and Salim Adolfo, who's a longtime commissioner. So, I mean, for the people, how do they decide who to trust the most to make these decisions when it comes to their housing? Some candidates aren't even really defining themselves and where they stand. I mean, out of all of them, we know that Councilmember Janice Lewis, we know where she stands. She's been very clear where she stands. But say you're in Ward 7, everyone is talking about different plans. You want to talk about housing. You talked about the streetcar. You just said how much money the streetcar raised. But almost every single candidate in Ward 7 is in support of extending the streetcar to Benning Road. And there's a lot of residents who seem to support the idea too. Me personally feel like it's just going to drive to displacement. But what do the people supposed to go on?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. It's hard to understand track records of folks that are just, the Ward 7 race has got so many, candidates, so many people in it. It's amazing. It's interesting because this ballot is also going to have ranked choice voting up for,
yeah.
And that would be handy in a Ward 7 race like now. Like it would really be handy because then you could rank choice your all these candidates, so many candidates. I don't know what to say. I mean, I've always.
So that means you support ranked choice voting.
I do. I don't know if I necessarily support open primaries, though. Unfortunately, those are inextricably linked in this ballot initiative. They've put them both on the same initiative, like open primary and ranked choice voting.
Well, see, that's my thing. If it was ranked choice voting by itself, I definitely wouldn't have an issue with it. I definitely am a strong follower of the Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton. and I follow him in New York, and it seems to have had an effect in New York City. So and he supports it. And so I have always supported it ever since then. But I don't know if I can support the initiative because I don't know if I want to open the door for Republicans voting in my primary.
Well, it wouldn't open the door for Republicans to vote in your primary. It would open the door for independents to
I mean,
vote.
that's what I meant to say. Yeah, independents.
Mhm.
I mean, especially in this city, especially what we already have seen. We already have seen Democrats switch to independent, run for office, switch back to Democrat. It's just, it just doesn't seem like it would be a genuine vote.
Well, I mean, I don't know what is a genuine vote. There's not a lot of folks voting. The Democrats haven't inspired us to march to the polls, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
I mean, they're turning around $500 million of billionaires while kids are starving, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, there's not a sense of a working class solidarity in the corporate Democratic Party that is in DC right now. It's not the Marion Barry of the 70s and 80s. I mean, it's just not. It's a different Democratic Party. It's a party that was inspired by Mayor Williams, who said in 2000 or 1999, I want 100,000 people here. He proclaimed it. I happened to be in front of One Judiciary Square when he had the press conference, and he proclaimed, I want 100,000 new folks here within the next 20 years, and I want them to be the folks who have spending money. And indeed, he did that. Now, simultaneously, 60,000 folks had to be shown the door, and they happen to be Black folks. So it's a sort of like that. If we ain't going to deal with the facts and the realities of these policies,
With the beginning of the non-citizens being allowed to participate in local elections,
yeah,
will that even things out, or will that help?
I think it would help progressive policy making. But again, it depends on it all depends on the candidates. Like, if there's not a true progressive to vote for, then what are we talking about, right? Like, it's just going to still be the same sort of result, right? And so I don't know.
Is there a true progressive candidate to you?
That's what I was going to ask you. You're more tapped in than I am on the Dems right now.
I mean, I definitely think that Councilwoman Janice Lewis George is progressive in my book.
Definitely. That's 1 out of 13.
Here's the thing. Trayon White comes along and sometimes tries to sound progressive, but then he isn't so progressive,
I mean, but it's not a surprise. Like, I love Trayon.
I love him. That's my brother. Oh yeah.
I think he's probably the most realist person up on the dais, on the council
would
dais.
you say Robert White is progressive? I think Robert White is progressive.
It's hard to say much of anything of Robert White. I feel like he's like probably the squishiest flip-flopper I think out there. He really is. I mean, that was great to see him actually have a backbone against Miss Bowser about ERAP. Great. But like, talk about just, slow playing, like, I mean, it's not, we're in emergency levels now. Like, if you're truly progressive, like, you're going to be doing everything you can to, if you have to turn over $500 million to a billionaire, you're squeezing out 25-30 million out of that for true downtown anti-displacement policy work. Right?
So we need more progressives to run, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and that term has sort of lost its meaning under the current regime. Like, Brianne Nadeau has adopted the term, I'm a progressive candidate, right? I mean, and she is okay with a Republican policy of privatization of all of our public land, right? Privatize it, turn it over to a developer. It's weird. The council members have decided that privatizing land is a way to go to kind of be king and queen maker of the developer community. Like they get to pick who's gonna get our land, and let's try to like eliminate public input on that whole process, and do everything around like just turning over our assets to private hands who have no real stake in our city. It is just a deal. It's a transaction. And I don't know how much land we have left. But like, do they? Because like, where's the list? And are they checking it off? Like how much we got left? How many properties do we have left?
So I'm going to switch it up here. I just want to hear your thoughts really quickly on Secure DC. The Secure DC Act passed, and this is what I actually work with. It was a pleasure to work with Melissa Wassa down at the Wilson Building. But she said while the amended Secure DC Act provides some limited safeguards, it falls short of keeping us safe from abuse of power. History has taught us that crisis is the precise moment when we must strengthen our rights and liberties, not turn. What do you think? Like, here's this thing. I felt like I didn't like Secure DC Act, and then I saw the amendments, and I said, okay, this is so much better now. And then I thought about it, and I said, well, I can't say that our city wasn't in a moment of panic. It did seem like we were in a moment of panic. But when you look at the numbers now, crime is going down. I don't know if Security DC had anything to do with that, but crime is going down. So, like, were you for the Security DC Act?
The Insecure DC Act? Yeah, no. No, I mean, look, a punitive response to poverty crimes is never the answer. I mean, you might as well call it the anti-George Floyd Act. Spit in the face of George Floyd Supporters Act. It doesn't get to the root of the problems. Like, why are folks going into CVS's and taking toilet paper and detergent and stuff? Like, this isn't like with the amount of white collar crime that's happening in the city, the amount of money that is given away to developers' friends, the mayor's developer friends, or just the networks of actual like tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and the land and the zoning appraisals and the air rights and entitlements. The amount of that money compared to a few toilet paper rolls and some detergent. I mean, it just goes to show you the disparity that we have in the city. Every one of these public land deals where some developer makes bank and goes on their yacht trip, means less affordable housing for folks who are like up against the wall going, what am I going to do? How do I survive my city without options? Like, they don't have folks in Virginia, Maryland, South Carolina, Florida, New York. They don't have places to go. They're here. They were born here. They want to stay here. To me, the idea of throwing folks in jail for that seems the opposite direction. Now,
so I mean, if you think that's overreaction, I just want to see.
My name is Ebony Payne, and I'm running for Ward 7 DC Council. I grew up here, and the streets today are worse than at any point in my life. Crime and carjackings are out of control. People are even stealing our dogs. Enough is enough. When I'm elected, if you hurt or kidnap a dog, you're going to jail for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, look, no, I mean, the carjackings and taking of people's dogs, like, it's like, how do you excuse any of that? Nobody's saying that. I think what people want to know, though, is can we get to the root of the issue? Why are people stealing dogs?
Well,
That's
I have to go. I have to interject there because number one, I want is there's this thing where people are trying to weigh candidates. Pick a candidate for their strength in housing or a candidate because they're going to be strong on crime. But I must say that when you go to meetings, and I consider myself a progressive, and I'm more so always talking about violence prevention and those types of things, that it's the people, it's the parents, it's the voters, and they're like, listen, we need more police. Listen, people are getting right back out of jail, and we need something, harsher. And I
Yeah, we
mean,
need more racist police on our street. That's what we need. No, but I mean, like, look,
these are black people and brown people that are asking for more police.
I mean, okay, it's a reaction. It's a reaction to decades of policies that have failed us as a people, as a city. It's a reaction because it's gotten so bad. The disparity has gotten so bad. And by the way, yeah, there's also this other critical piece of this that doesn't have to involve police. It's the prosecutors. There's been a purposeful non-prosecution of legitimate offenders, like people who have violently offended others with force have not been prosecuted. So that's like there's a huge gap here between we need more police to arrest the same people over and over again so that they don't get prosecuted. You know what I'm saying? Like, and actually prosecuting them. Or how about actually getting people affordable housing and real jobs that will pay the rent?
Well, that's why I brought up Lisa Gore earlier, because Lisa Gore, when she ran for council at large against Anita Bonds, she heavily criticized Anita Bonds for her housing oversight. And she talked about the work that she did with HUD and how she'd be great for housing. Well, now her theme seems to be tough on crime. So do you take someone like Lisa Gore, who has the housing experience and who's going to keep you safer, over a progressive like Janice Lewis George, because she can, it's like, so how do you weigh this thing?
I don't think Lisa Gore is going to keep anybody safer. I mean, that's the thing. Like, neither is Janice. I think it's a question of it's been so far off base. Who the policies of this city has benefited and who it has been harming, right? When Anthony Williams said, "I want 100,000 new," he didn't say white people, but he said people spending money to come into the city. That is where that in Alice Rivlin and the whole Brookings Institute and that whole cohort of thinkers, had set a series of policies out 20 years ago that was going to change starkly the demographics of the city and pander to moneyed interests, right? Versus where it was maybe under Mayor for Life. So it's like there was a complete shift in who we are supporting, who we're pandering to, who's getting the jobs, what kind of jobs we're going to bring here, who that's going to benefit, and a shift. Like, I mean, closing all the schools. Where did the schools get closed? Predominantly 5, 7, and 8. Closing of all your auto training center, all the sort of the job training centers and stuff. Where did that happen? 5, 7, and 8.
Mayor Bowser is proud of. She's proud to say and to get spoken of the way that she has, quote unquote, beautified this city. She always brags about having the #1 parks and recreations, and she feels like what she did was incredible as far as its infrastructure and the way it looks now. I always say Marion Barry focused more on the people than the city, and now Mayor Bowser is focusing more on the beautification of the city. than the people. But
how about the way it smells? Because it smells like garbage. It
right.
really, I mean, downtown in the summer, we're going to start smelling it soon. Those sewers, the combined sewers, are really going to start stinking up. And all the dog parks and those garbage cans are in there. Yeah, that's real beautiful, but it stinks. I mean, that's the thing. It's like closing.
Do you think this city could be where it's at now had it not been those influx of people that Mayor Anthony Williams? Do you think that we would be as attractive and as great and as thriving, always finishing with the surplus? Do you think that we would still have been that city had we not followed through with Anthony Williams?
I mean, I don't know what city you're talking about. It's a tale of two cities. Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about that white people's income has multiplied by 500% over the last 20 years, while black folks' income have stayed the same or gone down, like, is that the city we're talking about? Because I lost a lot of my friends. Adams Morgan has gone through a humongous several waves of gentrification over the last 20 years I've been here. Most of my friends are gone. They can't afford it anymore. I'm broke. So like I'm able to stay because I happen to have help from the city. Like, you know, like I guess I'm one of those people, game in the city. And I have my teeth to prove it, you know, and all of that. And I'm, you know, I mean, I'm just sort of like, I'm puzzled by the spin and the propaganda that says we're doing great, but yet I look around and I see my friends and family and people I know and love who are struggling more than ever, and it seems to be getting harder and harder to get help from the city. That the people who do get help from the city, and by the way, deservedly so, for the systemic racism that has existed in this country, let alone this city, for hundreds of years, people are owed this help. Okay, Chocolate City is owed this help. Period. Like, no questions asked. So when I see the disinvestment in the black neighborhoods of DC, the closing of libraries. I mean, Anacostia and Benning didn't have a library for 4 years. They did not have a library for 4 years.
Well, now you know how I feel about Potomac Gardens, and the library right there, Eastern Market, is now closed for renovation for who knows how long.
At Southeast.
Yeah,
Library.
yeah.
I mean, so I guess. And that's the thing, like, I don't even know if there's going to be interim services, but like there was no interim services for Benning and Anacostia, right? So you imagine for 4 years as a child, as somebody in the community, you don't have a library for 4 years. That's an entire high school career. I mean, so that type of disinvestment that's targeting certain communities, right, is, to me, that's the two cities. Like, yes, okay, beautified Union Market. You've also destroyed the place where all of the other businesses in the city like would get their stuff from for cheap. It was like the wholesale market, right? Now, where is that wholesale market? Where is it now? I saw a gigantic truck coming down the street the other day because there isn't a place for gigantic trucks to come in off the highway off New York Ave. Drop their stuff off and get back out of town. There isn't that place anymore. They have not planned for that. They have planned for luxury Disneyland 2.0. I mean, here it's another one. So you got around Buzzard Point, you got the wharf. We're up to actually 3 or 4.0, frankly. Union Market is like, it is completely different. Completely different. A policy, 6,000 new housing units there. 6,000. Guess how many quote unquote affordable family size units the city brokered away and giving away all those air rights at Union Market? Can you take a guess? out of 6,000 new units?
100.
Go lower.
Wow. 30.
Lower.
Wow. 10.
10. You got it. 10.
That is crazy.
10 family size, so 3+ bedrooms, affordable units.
Wow.
1,000 hotel rooms. 1,000 hotel rooms in addition to the 6,000 new luxury units. I mean, to me, it's purposeful policy, and so when I see folks like Robert White and Kenya McDuffie, you know, say such great things from the dais, they know these deals are going on. They're in the center of them. They're the ones who, you know, they eyeball this stuff. They know it's happening, just like the rest of us. And so, for them to be satisfied with this, to me, is the reality of what we're dealing with. You know.
So you know what? We got to make we're going to get somebody from the council on this show. we have to, and we got to start getting some answers from them straight up, face to face. But before we go, we're getting ready to close. This is our conclusion of our very first streaming of the People's Show, the People's Voice. Do you have anything to say for your last second?
I'm sending love to the people of Gaza, and it's all about a land struggle in Palestine and a land struggle right here in DC. It's unfortunately definitively connected. We want people to stay on the land and take their land back.
I just want to highlight a stat that I have been talking about for the past week or so. 40% of families in DC are families that consist of a single mother. 40%. I think that needs to be talked about. I think that needs to be thought about. And I think that's something that we need to just meditate on over the next couple of weeks. We'll see you next Wednesday, in 2 more weeks, next Wednesday. That's Chris Otten. I'm Reverend Mike, and this is the People's Voice.
The People's Voice.
Until next time, see you later.
Summer. Ready for summer. It's nothing like summer. I've been cooped up too long. I just wanna be free. The summertime is calling me. Cruising riding around downtown in DC. The forecast said the temp will be 80s all week. Now if you feel like I feel, then you know what I mean. When I say we're long overdue for hitting them scenes. Everything's just better in the summertime. I'm feeling fine, I'ma live my life. Summer is the season. Summertime. Cruising the street, shooting the wind. Ladies look so pretty. Take me deep, just let it go. Now all the ladies looking pretty, drinking mimosas, accidentally, head done, nails did, just cutting up in the city. Fellas driving Hot Wheels, old schools made of steel, motorcycle, dirt bike, muscle cars, chrome rims. You can taste the air, taste like summer. When good times just seem much funner, weather just better, food straight from heaven. I don't know about you, but I want summertime forever.